entrepreneurs are twice as likely to commit suicide in their lifetime and twice as likely to be hospitalized for mental health. I think when it comes to bipolar disorders or addiction, it's even worse. They are like 3 times more likely to develop that. And I think for depression, it's also 2 or 3 times as likely as normal people. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's probably 2 main factors. One factor is selection bias of the people who are drawn towards an entrepreneurial life. And I think the second factor is probably that it's a very stressful thing to choose to do. So on the first side, if you think about perhaps some of the greatest artists that have ever lived, like Salvador Dali or other people, many of them had substantial mental illness, whether it was probably schizophrenia like Dali or, many artists, Picasso, many others struggled with depression or even bipolar disorder. And there's been a lot of writing and people who talk about this intersection between some types of mental illness and creativity, and this idea of your brain works a little differently, which allows you to see the world differently and to create and to be inspired and to be motivated in ways that other people are not. Even if it's other things like obsessive compulsive disorder, right? Like think about Nikola Tesla, who had OCD. I mean, this was a man who was obsessed with electricity, and look at what he accomplished. I mean, we thank him for the electric motor and so many other things. So that's the first part, is I think entrepreneurs often look at things differently and have motivations that are really very helpful for creating and building and being obsessed with something that they are going to do. In terms of the challenge of being an entrepreneur, I mean, it's a hard, risk-laden life. It's hard because, oftentimes it's 10 p.m. and I'm on a call with somebody and it's disruptive to my family, or it's hard because your company's out of money next month, and what are you going to do? How are you going to are you going to fire people? Are you just going to shut the doors? The best description of being an entrepreneur that I recall is it's the idea of being dropped out of an airplane with some materials and you have to build your parachute before you hit the ground. That's kind of what it's like. Yeah. So obviously, add people who have selection bias for things like depression or bipolar disorder, then you have a very, very stressful occupation that has so many challenges associated with it. It is not surprising to me that you see higher than normal suicide rates.
So lots of people, in my observation, only fully realize they have mental health issues after they sell their company, because finally they have the luxury of time and money to properly think about it. What would you suggest these people do? Should they actually try to cure the problem, or should they embrace the different mindset that is a superpower that actually got them where they are now? They should accept it, develop it, and keep using it for the good of the planet.
Absolutely, I'd say address it before. I hope in my description prior that I maybe am an example of somebody who's mentally healthy and can also achieve and succeed. Mm-hmm. But I think that so often people suffer unnecessarily and put themselves at risk for things like suicide because they don't address a lot of issues that are worthwhile. And to me, mental health is one of the most misunderstood and poorly addressed parts of health. Mm-hmm. And in fact, if we think about it, it should just be health, not mental health. It's what are we without our brain and our ability to think and reason and feel? I mean, people so often ignore it and don't spend time on it. And yet they're much more willing to do things like get a gym membership and try to stay physically active, which of course does help mental health as well. But my point is that having increased awareness, being willing to carve out the time to make sure that you're maintaining mental health and understanding how your prior experiences are impacting your future course, I think it will actually only make you a better entrepreneur and more likely to succeed.
Okay, so you would suggest somebody who sold a business, realize that they have a mental health issue, actually spend time addressing it properly before they move on to whatever next quest is.
Yeah, absolutely.